be very clear on. We have to define what is abuse and be clear on what is abusing your kids and what is disciplining your kids. You know, I have cousins who, at a young age, was beating on their parents. And if it didn't have another male figure in there to rectify that, that could have been a very, very dangerous situation. So there is time and place for everything. You have to have discernment with your children. You have to have and you have to do it out of love. There is a thing called tough love. Sometimes it's not going to always be pretty. Sometimes it's going to be the thing that you don't want to do. It is parents who had to tell the cops on their own children. Mm-hmm. So sometimes this parenting isn't always going to be the fluffy thing. But if it's done out of love and it's done with the right mindset and the right spirit, then it will be received as such, and beautiful things will come from that. So let's be clear on what we're talking about. We're not talking about corporal abuse. We're not talking about beating up on your kids just for the sake of it. We want to make sure that our kids have every chance. We want them to explore all of their inner abilities and be the great giants that they were made to be, but at the same time, we do want them to respect others and not infringe upon others and understand what happens when you do.
Okay. Everline, we haven't heard from you in a minute.
You know, I was so enjoying listening to y'all just go at it. I had a ball, but actually there's not a whole lot for me to say. I'm in agreement with both Arthur and Brother Mike. There just needs to be a certain amount of balance in that. Like, even with my own 12-year-old, it's like there's a certain kind of rule that I have to teach her before anything goes down like that. But for the most part, we get it right, and it can be done. What can I say? I'm in agreement with both brothers.
Okay. All right, Tawana?
Spare the rod, spoil the child. I don't have children, but I do hope that when I do have children that I can teach them everything I can in the home. I don't want to abuse my child. I do want to give them all the tools that is necessary for them to go out into the world and be productive individuals. I do not want them to go out into the world and get into a situation that could really ultimately harm them and stunt their future. I do believe some lessons need to be learned on their own, but the lessons that can be learned in the home, I want to teach them. And that's just pretty much it.
Okay. Dominique?
Hi. Okay, so explore. Just, one word, explore. I definitely have to shout out Shirley, who was so gracious enough to share her story with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah, but in that story, I mean, the key there was just education. I just heard such a need for education. If the only thing that comes from this conversation is, even if we don't define an absolute right or wrong, that people begin to second-guess and explore, second-guess their primary method of discipline when it's a whooping, and explore other alternatives and really try to create a culture of learning within the home versus a culture of fear. And I keep going back to that point because every bit of wonderful that I am today has very little to do with as many whooping. I got my butt beat. I'm from the school of, my mom's upgrade was to leave the when one get it, they all get it. So her step up was just, you gonna get yours.
Okay.
And so I want to take that a step further and say, let that not be my default. Let me really look at the lesson that I want to teach, what the infraction was, what did my child do, and what life lesson is there to be learned that's going to help them make positive choices, because I feel so much about what Michael said about consequences, and that's something that my mother instilled in me at an early age. But it was her teaching. It was her telling me, okay, there are negative and positive consequences to your actions. And if you can't deal with the worst possible scenario, then you want to rethink doing this action and going forward with it. And that's carried me to 26. And I just wish there was more of that going on in the black home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Teaching our kids to think instead of teaching our kids to fear, you know, which people confuse with respect. Because I don't think our kids think enough. Interesting. Great point. Lab, Leslie Ann Brown?
Yes. I have to say that I don't make a distinction between abuse and corporal punishment. And children learn first and foremost by watching and learning about what they look at us, that we teach them through our actions. And I think when we look around us, and we actually the prison was mentioned a couple of times tonight, and certain situations which I think everyone can agree that they've been pretty violent. And I think that the relationship between being hit by your parents, and there is a relationship between that and self-esteem. And I don't think there's any parent who ever kind of looks back on raising their kids and be like, oh, I think I should have whipped his or her ass more, or, you know. So I think we need to put things in perspective, and I think we need to really examine how we parent and why we parent the way that we do it, and look at it's within a context, a spiritual, historical, social. And we need to start opening that up and delving into it, and first and foremost, going back to parenting. I mean, how do we parent? We really need to have more of a dialogue, because I find that there isn't enough of a dialogue going on about how we are. How we're teaching our children.
Okay, I agree with that. I am going to close. I'm not actually going to have a closing statement. I'm going to close and use someone else's words. I posted this question on my Facebook page, and one of my Facebook friends, Doug Elser, he wrote something that was extremely poignant, and I asked for his permission to repeat his words, and here they are. I was hit as a kid. It was effective in that it taught me to be afraid of my father. And as a result, I did what he said and asked without question. Good for him, bad for me. I firmly believe it raises children to react to the world around them with fear and suspicion rather than amazement and wonder. Yep. It probably made sense 100,000 years ago, when not being quiet, for instance, might cause the whole clan to be eaten by a tiger. But today, it has most certainly outgrown any evolutionary basis it had.
Well said.
Yeah, I agree. And that's just me. That's my personal opinion. I do believe that as a species, we are continually evolving. And some things I think we've just outgrown, you know, and, we need to move up. We need to do better. And that's just my say-so. If you're listening and you feel like you didn't get a chance to say what you had to say, please post on our Facebook page. And to everyone who's listening, have a great day. And we love you. Inspirit Talk Radio. Get you a piece.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
The content of Inspirit Radio, owned and operated by Inspirit Communications, is intended for general information purposes only. It is not designed to provide listeners with specific and personal medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. The programs are not meant to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Individuals with health problems should always consult their healthcare provider for professional medical advice, medications, or treatments. Inspirit Communications does not promote anyone's individual practice, programs, agendas, particular treatments, healthcare programs, providers, hospitals, or medical centers. The views expressed by show hosts and guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Inspirit Communications. We make no recommendations or endorsement for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or website. Personal perspectives expressed will always be presented as such. We encourage you to seek professional advice or care for any problem which you may have. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to Inspirit Communications or the show host whose words and or opinions appear on the show or website.
Yo, Danella.